Thanks, Carrie. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Carrie. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the ACEC Research Institute's Board of Directors, welcome to today's Future of Engineering Roundtable. A big thank you to our donors who have made this session possible. We have a great group of industry leaders here with us today that are going to share their insights and expertise. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you our moderator for today's session, Kevin McMahon. Kevin serves as a consultant for the Research Institute and has vast experience in our industry. Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you so much, Daphne. This roundtable is the second in a series of sessions focused on the role, value, and impact of technology among engineering and design service firms. We're going to look at how different firms value technology, the impact to their bottom line, and their ability to address emerging technology changes, as well as barriers to mainstream adoption. As Daphne mentioned, we have a terrific panel here with us today, and a brief introduction of the panelists. First, John Chiglo, who is Chief Operating Officer with WSB. WSB is a forward-thinking design and consulting firm specializing in engineering, community planning, environmental, and construction, and is responsible for technology for over 600 employees. Sam Ishak is the Chief Information Officer for Langen Engineering and Environmental, and he is responsible for technology strategy, development, and implementation for over 1,600 employees throughout the United States and abroad. And lastly, but not last but not least, certainly, is Heather Wishart-Smith. Heather is Senior Vice President, Technology and Innovation, and she's responsible for harnessing the innovative energy of over 50,000 Jacobs professionals to deliver new and innovative solutions for their clients. Joe Bates is also with us, and Joe is the research partner for ACEC Research Institute, and we'll be fielding your questions through the chat, and we'll be posing them to the panelists as we go through this webinar. Let me get started by asking a question to the panel, and let me start with Heather. Heather, from a small firm leader who wants to partner with Jacobs on major projects, what potential technology do I need my firm to be proficient in to be positioned to add value to Jacobs?
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. So I think there are really two answers to this question. And the first one is pretty broad, and it's related to these firms, these partners with Jacobs having an open mindset as it pertains to adopting technology. So, we at Jacobs, we don't look to just deploy specific technologies, but really use it as an opportunity to go deep, to really understand the challenges that our clients face and what they're trying to solve. And so we would really right-size the technology that we deploy, in many cases for problems that our clients don't even know exist because they're below the surface. So that's that first piece, is that open mindset in adopting technology. But then more specific to the ACEC audience, we certainly have some pretty established expertise in BIM, building information modeling, and geospatial as a standard practice throughout all of our design delivery. And so as we look for partners, we look for smaller firms that have similar capabilities, but who also are open to being upskilled. So related to, of course, the geospatial piece would be some ability to leverage data predictive analytics and automation. So things like robotic process automation, automated design. Of course, all of this needs to be protected with cybersecurity. And then finally, I would say a real keen interest in the UN Sustainable Development Goals for climate response objectives. All of that is really a big part of what we're embedding in terms of technology, in terms of how we deliver as well.
Great, Heather, thank you. Sam and John, let me follow up with you, both of you, on your firms. How important is the tech proficiency of your subs and partners? Sam, let me start first with you.
I'd say in a lot of cases, we're really more focused on the quality of their work in terms of the engineering piece, and we will certainly look for best of breed. But absolutely, technology has an interest to us. I really appreciate what you said about automation, Heather. That's just a big piece of what we look for in partners. So the ability to not only be able to minimize human error and to speed up the process through automation, but also take that a step further and look at the data itself. So we're very interested in people who are focused on intelligent data, how you're collecting the data. Are you making it robust enough that it can be used across multiple platforms or multiple disciplines in the project lifecycle. And then, of course, the security piece kind of goes without saying, but really that whole element of being able to provide not only high quality, but data that's usable through other parts of the project has a big impact for us as well.
Thanks, Sam. John, how about your firm and what you guys are doing with your sub-consultants and partners on projects?
Well, as we advance the use of technology on our projects, we do look for trusted partners that we can work with, obviously, that have a good track record. We've recently been bringing in some of our partners to do some training to bring them up to speed on where we are at with the technology to help them be more effective in the work that we're trying to perform as a team for our clients. But yeah, the advancement of technology is going to be something that is going to continue to be a challenge for all of us, and for our subs in particular, we're going to be looking for those folks that are going to embrace the technology as they come on our teams, and we're going to be teaming with primes that allow us to show the true value of what we can deliver on projects.
Thanks so much, John. John, follow-up question. Relative to community planning projects, which your firm is quite proficient in, are clients asking you to provide technology solutions specifically? If so, what type? Or are you introducing clients to new tools and technology? So are you being driven by clients, or are you leading the clients into new tools?
I think it's more we are driving it, or our industry is driving this. I think our industry is really, in order for us to continue to be competitive in the industry, I think we have to keep up, even though we are a smaller firm. So we are introducing technology solutions to clients. If it's digital concept development, or if it's applied GIS, so that we can make better decisions based on the data that we can utilize as part of those planning projects. But I think for the most part, it's the consultants that are driving a lot of the innovation right now, and the owners are looking for us to bring that to them to help them solve their problems more efficiently and more collaboratively with not just them, but with their constituents, and so there's a variety of reasons, but they're really looking at us to help them solve that technology problem.
Hey, John, I know you mentioned digital GIS. What types of projects specifically are you using digital GIS for, and what problems are you trying to solve using that tool?
So we've been able to, it's almost similar to a BIM environment. We are able to download geotechnical information, soil contamination. We can look at geometry, deficiencies. We can look at accident history, and we can bring that into a GIS platform and use that to help us make decisions on why the accidents are occurring, if it's side swipes, if it's the geometry that's causing it, I'm in Minnesota, so if it's snow and ice, run off the road type things. But having all of that information available to you that allows you then to filter out or try to find that relationship between those different variables becomes very valuable in how you can do it. Typically, if everybody knows, we used to have big layouts that you lay on the desk, everybody gather around and you start drawing circles or locating different issues that might be occurring. Now, with all the data that's out there, you can collect that information and bring it into a GIS platform to help you be more flexible and make decisions more accurately with all of the data available. And you can do it remotely. Over the last 2 years, that's been effective. A lot of folks can participate in those discussions. They don't have to be in the same room. They can actually do their own analysis with that GIS tool. GIS is a very user-friendly platform where they can do their own filtering to manipulate the tool to see if they can find relationships on their own. So there's a lot of systems that are being developed now to help with this collaborative environment, but also provide some freedom for independent citizens to use this data to help them do their own analysis.
Wow, that's very interesting. Sam, let me ask you, what tools are being used in the environmental business that Langen is using to deliver more comprehensive results to clients. And I do know specifically that Langen has a lot of local environmental clients and also some national environmental clients. And are there differences in the approach that you're using to solve both clients' types of issues?
You know, Kevin, just before we go on to that, I was thinking about what John just shared, and it's amazing that the value that something like what he just talked about brings, because it's not just an element of finding those last couple of locations of something you knew you were looking for. It's the whole element of understanding what you didn't even know you were looking for, right? So having those levels of visualization and analysis really just open up a whole nother world to what did I even not think about. So it's, you know, it's huge for us, and that ultimately that comes back to the data. And I think if you look in the environmental world where we operate quite a bit, the data is king. You know, everything in the environmental world revolves somewhere around data. So for us, it's a continuum. So we focus quite a bit on collection. So we are big into Esri's field maps and Survey 123 that we use to create purpose-driven applications that engineers can take out in the field. And you know, I think it's important for us to be clear. Just being field mobile isn't a matter of taking a spreadsheet out on a tablet and being able to fill it in the field. It's really that whole element of looking at the tools you have and rethinking how you process and how you to do your work to take advantage of the digital aspects to it. And for us, collection, high quality collection, collect it once, use it multiple times, and not only that, but collect it interactively in the field. So being able to take those apps and port the data directly back to the office, so that in real time, an engineer in the office can be looking over the field person's shoulder and making sure that we collected the right data, that is validated, that the locations they picked were the right ones, and be able to pivot on the fly in the field. But then taking that data, and the next step, of course, is the analysis. So we're big into things like Power BI and Tableau, which allow us to, even starters can now bring disparate data sources together and create some kind of intelligence or some visualization pretty readily. And then, ultimately the connection to the client, the collaboration with the client is the real goal. So we use products like Earthsoft's Equus and Power BI to create dashboards.
Hey, Sam, can you explain what Power BI and Tableau are to the audience?
Oh, of course. So Tableau and Power BI are data analysis tools. So if you look at them very fundamentally, they allow you to take different data sources, whether it be spreadsheets or databases or data coming in from the field or whatever, and to aggregate those data and create relationships within them so that you can analyze them, right? Gather some intelligence from them, generate visualizations, pictures, allow people to slice and dice so that they can get down to the meat of what they're looking for in the data itself. And then finally, that the end result, and both of these will do that as well, is these dashboards. And for us, the beauty in the dashboards is it allows us to interact with our clients and allow the clients to interact with the data very intuitively. It takes away the whole black box of what's going on in the background and allows the client to just dive in and dig into what they're looking for.
That was a very interesting answer. I'm going to give you a bonus question. I'll tell you what it is, and I'll let you think about it for a second, all three of you. Because Heather mentioned that clients don't even know that some opportunities and solutions exist while they're starting projects, and then John and Sam, you as well, also added into that idea. So I'd like to hear some specifics about that. But first, the concrete example, to have Heather just describe what Jacobs announced today or yesterday, the acquisition of Streetlight, which is a little different acquisition in the engineering business. And John is a client of Streetlight. So, and Sam, your firm does a bunch of traffic work as well. So I thought it would be good for the audience to hear about what's going on that's a little different than a conventional acquisition. Heather, can you just briefly describe the Streetlight acquisition from your perspective?
Sure, yeah. So before we were all convening here, we had a bit of a discussion about the recent announcement and the earnings call that Jacobs had earlier today. And we have announced our acquisition of Streetlight Data, which is a data provider really in the mobility space in terms of being able to provide this data collected and aggregated from a variety of different sources. And it really provides a lot of insight for traffic planning and the like. I agree, it's definitely not a typical sort of acquisition in the engineering space, but I would also say that Jacobs isn't really a traditional kind of engineering company anymore. We were at one point, but we no longer are. And so this actually is just our most recent acquisition in the data space. We recently acquired data company and product provider Blacklinks, which is in the cybersecurity space. We announced several months ago our investment from my venture capital perspective in Microgrid Labs, which is a company that provides software as a service for the planning of the charging stations for the electrification of vehicles. So it's really a wide variety of areas, excuse me, that we're in to be able to access the very innovative technologies that these companies have. And so we're approaching innovation both organically in terms of what we develop ourselves. We're approaching it from the perspective of acquisitions, and we're also approaching it from the perspective of venture capital.
Awesome, great. And John, can you just describe what you use Streetlight for in your community planning projects?
Yeah, we have been using streetlights for a number of years now to help improve the quality of our traffic operational analysis. It's a very useful tool to help with origin destination modeling, but it's been it's really revolutionized, I would say, the traffic modeling approach, traditional traffic modeling approach that we've seen for so many years.
Awesome. Sam, do you have anything to add on to this topic, or do you want me to go to the bonus question of what some of the solutions you're finding for clients that they weren't even aware they had an issue with?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we do use street lamp. I'm not that far down into the weeds, but I will say that, similar in concept, we are focused on finding other innovations that we can bring to the clients in that same realm, whether it be a third-party product or things that we develop ourselves. So things, for example, like we had a client who was focused on or owns stadiums, and they were trying to find solutions into figuring out how to make a flow in and out of the stadiums more smoother, right? A little bit more functional. And so spending the time looking at the data itself really is what brings us to a place where we can look at putting together dashboards and control panels for them that allow them to monitor data in real time, monitor traffic in real time, and then be able to make announcements or direct their clients to different pathways into the stadiums. So things along those lines where, they knew they had a traffic problem, but they didn't know where it was coming from. And by being able to provide the real-time data and analyzing it with them collaboratively, it helps them to understand where their pain points are. And therefore, I have to do some work on this roadway, or I have to find a better entrance over on this side.
Awesome. Heather, could you give us an example of coming up with solutions that clients didn't even know they had an issue with? I guess I know that happens a lot, but love to hear a concrete example.
Gosh, now you're going to have me be digging into the depths of my of my knowledge here. I would say I'll give an example from the Middle East, where there was a client who thought that they needed to merely upgrade their wastewater treatment system. And they recognized that they had a capacity issue, but they didn't recognize necessarily what the true source of that was or what the true cause of that was. And so we went in there, had a couple of discussions of examples where we've provided similar solutions. And we've provided more digital solutions to help with the capacity as opposed to hard concrete solutions. And so really through digital solutions and innovations, there are opportunities to make better use of the infrastructure you have as opposed to building new. And so in that particular instance, the analogy that I like to provide a lot of times is more on the highway side, where the client will come and put out an RFP that says that they need a new lane on their highway, and they think their problem is that they need a new lane in their highway. But if you keep asking the question, what if, and Jacob's innovation program is called Beyond If for that very reason, keep asking the question, what if, or keep asking the question, why? You really get to the heart of the problem, which is not that they need a new lane, it's that they've got a capacity problem. Well, what's causing that capacity problem? Is it that there is not enough, kind of peak load shaving on the system? Is it that there is poor traffic management? So the whole point is, can we get to the point where instead of building the new wastewater treatment plant or building the new lane on the highway, can we manage the assets that they have more effectively? And so I think those are probably two examples. We've got quite a few, but I'm thinking of one example in Cincinnati, actually, with the water treatment plant. And then the other one is in the Middle East with another water example as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. How about you, John? What I'm hearing from both Sam and Heather is that we're becoming more of our clients' trusted advisor and being engaged in figuring out what the problem is before we go and figure out what the solution is, which I think we did more of that latter aspect of it 20 years ago. The solution the problem was defined for us and we went out and quote unquote fixed it. But it sounds like we're becoming more efficient with our clients' money with technology.
Well, I think technology opens the door for us to identify more potential solutions or give them insight into how technology can be used to make their lives easier and manage their risk. And so some of the stuff that we have a larger construction services group. We work in various industries, public and private. We don't typically develop our own software very much. We try to take software that exists and be very effective at applying it to the solutions and solving problems. But I think we ended up developing a platform that really provides real-time access to our clients, to our construction diaries, information, billing, and it generated quite a bit of feedback from our clients because they don't think they ever thought that could be done. And so, it gave them access, immediate access to similar to what Sam was talking about earlier. It gave them easier access or more real-time access to react to the issues that we're bringing up in a proactive manner. And it gave them more information, and that information provides them more power and influence on how they're going to be managing their risk.
Awesome.
And
Thank you, John.
Kevin, I'll just say that I think you're right on the money. Our clients really aren't just looking for us to provide an answer anymore, right? They are looking for a trusted advisor. I often use the analogy of, our clients don't want us to be a lumber yard. They can pick up a 2x4 from anywhere, right? They want us to be the design build team that helps them figure out the solution and then bring it to fruition. So if we're not really engaged at a point where we are helping them design the solution and finding the problems to begin with, we're completely missing the boat.
Okay, thank you. Joe, from your perspective, any questions out there in the folks that are listening to this?
Yeah, we've got a really good question here. It's not so much about the technology itself, but how you're managing the technology. So the question is about how are firms structuring their personnel to manage the technologies that you currently are using, as well as how are you managing potential disruptive technologies in the future. So it's really about how are you structuring your teams to manage technology. And if you have insight into firms that are in the sort of smallish to mid-sized range, I think this person is more interested in that as well.
Who wants to go first? Heather, you want to give that a shot?
I don't know that I can say that I'm the appropriate person to answer for firms for 1 to 100 or under 500 or even under 50,000 employees. But I think I can provide some insight that would still be useful for smaller firms, because you really need to have that balance between standardization and entrepreneurialism. So, you don't want to have everybody just rushing off to get the next cool thing, the next cool tool, or anything else like that. We don't want to limit people to a single tool. But we also recognize the need that we need to standardize the tools that we use so that we can, leverage economies at scale. And so something that we do within Jacobs that I, personally think would still be very applicable for smaller firms would really be to have an enterprise application architecture for our standard tools. And in fact, for all of our standard tools, we designate a tool steward. And so what that tool steward is responsible for is to evaluate the tools against work practices, against our enterprise application architecture integrations. And then that tool steward will also work closely with IT. And IT is the group that's supporting, the operators and the operations, so that we can make sure that we are maintaining the tool appropriately, we're upgrading it appropriately, that we are getting economies of scale. Once again, we're adapting it. And then also retiring tools that are no longer necessary. So, these tool stewards then work with our vendor partners to make sure that they understand, both sides understand the roadmap, and then they can provide feedback to our vendor partners in terms of where we're seeing a need for future development, or maybe there are some bugs or other sorts of things. So again, this is the way we handle it at Jacobs, not a small firm, but I think hopefully there are some nuggets that smaller firms could take from that as well.
Yep, thanks, Heather, before I ask Sam and John for their thoughts on this topic, which is a really good one, you mentioned enterprise architecture application, I believe. Can you just describe what that is?
Yeah, so enterprise architecture is really a practice to make sure that you've got the flow down of processes, tools, procedures, all the rest in support of the business. Probably not enough time to go through it here, but making sure again that all of that is coherent and it's coordinated so that you don't end up having disparate functions that are going off in different directions and then the tools not supporting them or vice versa.
Okay, great, thanks. Sam, how about you? Do you want to address this question that Joe posed?
Yeah, Heather, I love that idea of a tool steward. I don't know that I've even thought about that one before, but I think that's an excellent idea. Giving somebody some ownership and accountability for a tool certainly make sure it doesn't get forgotten by the wayside. So there's a nugget for me for sure. Thank you.
Sure.
I think one of the things that we struggle with in this specific field is not only how do you deal with all of the emerging technologies and the disruptive things that are coming out and staying ahead of the game, but also how do you deal with the shadow IT that is also pursuing these things, and how do you make sure that they stay part of the fold? So I will say for Langen, we over the years we've grown from where we had just an IT shop to now we do have a dedicated team that are focused on design technologies and a dedicated team that are focused on applied technologies, and putting that accountability within the teams certainly spreads the wealth of trying to keep ahead of the market. But the other part that we focus on is making sure that we engage with the end users. So, we want the technology team to drive the bus, but we don't want to run anybody over, right? So we do very commonly reach out to the staff and engage with them on a pretty regular basis to understand where their heads are at, what they're seeing. They are an excellent source of ideas, and I think if you can come up alongside of them and offer the partnership. So for us, we come in and we offer them funding to help buy tools. We offer them resources to help develop an idea. We get them. They take the credit for the idea, which I think certainly helps quite a bit. But in the meantime, they become our cheerleader. They become our partner. They help us not only develop it but also drive it into adoption. So having that collaborative partnering relationship with your end users, I think, plays a big piece of this as well.
How about you, John? What do you think about this?
I'll make this quick, but I think it's very similar to what Heather explained. That we have an IT lead, we have a technical lead, and then we have a champion within the organization that helps make sure that the focus and attention is being placed to make sure that applies that technology as we intend it to be. We also have our firm started off, it's 25 years old. It's still got quite a bit of entrepreneur spirit in it. So we have a competition, kind of an open competition throughout the year where folks can submit their ideas for technology. And then throughout the course of the year, we evaluate it and we make decisions. And if we pick one of those technologies to move forward with, we allow that person to play a bigger role in advancing it and implementing it. And so they have some ownership and they help apply that technology. And so there's a variety of things that we do. We're really not focused too much on apps. I'm not a fan of all the apps that are out there. I think they age too quickly. But when it comes to this disruptive technology that was part of the question too, we in many ways we embrace it, but we're not chasing every type of technology out there either. We're very focused. We try to be very strategic in how we select technologies that we want to apply. And it's really driven by what we see as client needs and how we can be more efficient in solving those needs with or through technology.
I too like that word steward, Heather. It's a great word. Stewardship is a high degree of responsibility it conveys. John, it used to drive me crazy in the old days as an ex-DOT guy yourself, where you'd have one pretty good tool for software designed for highways, and then a DOT wanted to use their version of life, which was, another purchase, another training program, and another thing to maintain. How do you deal with that type of situation in your firm today?
Well, I think a lot of DOTs have really adopted one or two types of CAD. or different technologies, but there's still a lot of variety out there. I think if we have something that we are really we believe can solve some issues or challenge, create some value for the DOT, we really try to show that value and convince them. You can't do it if you don't have the relationships though. And so you need the relationships with those clients in order to convince them and be that trusted partner that we've been talking about here multiple times today. And so it comes down to the relationships and really being able to explain what the value and that return on investment is going to be for that client, that I think will open some doors for firms to show them and bring those technology solutions to those clients.
Folks, John mentioned this competition internally. He's got to submit ideas, and sounds like a little bit of a Shark Tank kind of concept, John. Well, my question is, I know a lot of firms that I know struggle with this. How do you create an atmosphere of innovation internally, while at the same time you want to encourage standards that promote efficiency, quality, and cost efficiency? So how do you manage both of those contradictory seemingly objectives at once? Heather, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think as it pertains to technology, I addressed some of it in terms of that balance between, when we were talking about staffing and personnel, the balance between standardization and entrepreneurialism. As far as innovation, more generally speaking, not just the technology aspect of it, that's what I lead within Jacobs. We've stood up an accelerator. We have a process whereby people can submit their ideas. They go through a filtering process. They go through, if they're accepted, they go through our accelerator. There are coaches, there are dedicated resources. And then once they come out, they go into this solution station, we call it, which is almost like, kind of like the company store, if you will. They're all the solutions that we've developed are located on this solution station. And so there is a balance that needs to be struck, particularly when you're talking about employees who are very eager to innovate. You don't want to discourage anyone, but not all ideas, quite frankly, are good ones, or even the good ones, they might not be feasible. And so we do a pretty rigorous process to bring ideas into our accelerator. I think someone mentioned it earlier, I believe it may have been John, but our goal is not to create our own technology if something else is out there that exists. So when an idea comes in, we'll start out by doing a very thorough analysis of the problem. We keep saying that we need to fall in love with the client's problem before we start thinking about our solution. And that's hard. Most people start thinking about their solution first. So even when somebody comes to us with an idea, we go back to basics and really, really examine the problem. We examine the market, we examine the desirability, all of that. And so it can be really difficult for people when they have what they think is a great idea, go through this very rigorous process. But we've just found that it's the most effective way to be really efficient with our innovation investment, because otherwise you can go off and spend easily $500,000, $1 million, only to find out that you've built, a solution looking for a problem.
Sam or John, do you want to add on to how do you? I know John said the competition. We just got a question that popped up relative to how do you solicit ideas? I mean, are those do you publicize, John, your competition? Do you put out, we have a problem, we'd like some potential ideas, solutions? How do you go about that?
We try to make it very easy for them. The easier the better. That way we can avoid all of the stuff that Sam talks about where people start doing their own thing. But it doesn't mean that we don't have some of that going on yet. But we try to make it very easy. We put it on our internal website, and it's a click of a button, and they enter their name and the idea, and they talk about the value. Very simply done. And then they are collated, and we have a discussion on probably a quarterly basis to look at the ideas and give feedback and make selections if there are any that we choose to select.
How about your firm, Sam?
Yeah, John, you're right on the money. I think end users are always looking for the path of least resistance. So whatever you can do to grease the skids, and sometimes you're greasing the skids just to help them see where the real answer is. But whatever you can do to help grease the skids certainly improves adoption and brings collaboration. So for us, there's always a really big focus on centralization. We don't really want to be working on spot solutions, we'll call it, or solutions for individual groups or locations. As much as possible, we want to centralize and standardize so that we can bring solutions throughout the whole firm. And even when we're outside looking at third parties, that is similar to what Heather was saying before, that's always our first stop, is to see what the market has before we invest into developing. But when we're doing that, assembling focus groups, helping people see that we are interested in their input and we want to hear what they say, but doing it across the firm and in nice wide focus group, diverse focus groups, so that once a solution is found, you have a much greater potential for adoption and for having the people who worked with you to be, like I said, out there as your cheerleaders and helping you drive it through the firm.
Okay, thanks. Joe, do we have any other questions out there?
Kevin, the one thing I just want to pick up, the intellectual property in our firms is our most valuable asset. And so we need to take advantage of it and make it easy for them to try to contribute. And if we don't pick the idea, we usually follow up and just say, hey, we didn't pick it for these reasons. And they take it really well, as long as we close the loop and we engage them and help them understand why it wasn't selected. But we cannot miss out on all the different ideas that are out there, and we need to make it easy for them to submit them.
For sure.
And Kevin, I'll jump in a little bit because I want to tag on two things. One, Sam, you mentioned something about these kind of one-off solutions. I have a colleague who coined the term orphan solutions, orphan projects, where they're created for just one client. They're not scalable, and then you end up having to pay all this money to sustain them. So that's what we try to avoid. As far as it pertains to the particular question and how we solicit innovation ideas and any process or communication tools. So, we're at the size where we needed to have a centralized way to gather these ideas and run these challenges. We do run challenges periodically. The platform that we use is Wazoku. That said, we looked at, about 8 different platforms. There were some really, really good options out there. And there's a media group called Innovation Leader, or actually now they're called InnoLead. And people can go take a look at that. They've written different articles comparing them and all the rest. Wazoku happened to be the platform that worked best for us, but your needs are not my needs. And so it's worthwhile to go and look at what the different options are. So we do run these challenges periodically, and people will go and submit, and it's a very customizable platform so that you can tailor the amount of information that's necessary in order to submit. Everything as expensive as putting together like a business model canvas in order to submit, or just kind of submitting based on a couple of questions. And then it takes it through the approval process, the review process, and the like.
Well, and Kevin, I'll tell you, we not nearly as formal as Heather's role, although I would love to be. I guess maybe that's part of what comes with size. But for us, that gathering really comes in a couple of different levels. One is we have each of our 3 teams, the infrastructure, design tech, and applied tech, all have some folks dedicated to actually sitting down with project teams to watch over their shoulder, understand their process, and look for opportunities to innovate kind of from a distance. But then more importantly, we actually we do an annual tech tour where technology leadership goes from office to office, and buy lunch, because everybody will come for a free lunch, right? So we buy lunch and we sit down with the staff face to face over the table and talk about their pain points. We talk about things we're working on. We talk about ideas that they have, and I can't tell you how many creative ideas we got from, I was out in the field and I was trying to get something done. I downloaded this app. It got me half the way there. Can you help me get it over the finish line? So, being able to reap those ideas directly from the staff face to face is huge. And then I'll say the third point that we intercede at actually is a little bit higher up the level, where we talk with managers and we talk with practice leads to understand from them where they see inefficiencies in their teams or inefficiencies in their process that we can contribute to. And that's always a good point of information as well.
Well, thanks so much. One thing I think we can all agree on is small, mid-sized, and larger firms, a free lunch does attract participation. Been that way for many, many years. Let me turn the question to Joe. Anything out there that you want to pose?
Yeah, there's a couple comments just real quick. One person said that they love the tech road shows. That's a great idea. They're doing that also. So that seems to be something that others find to be helpful. Another suggestion for a platform to collect and evaluate ideas is Idea Scale. Someone just wanted to share that with us. And then a question here, it kind of segues into your next area, I think, Kevin, which is, what are the 1 or 2 technologies that you're getting a lot of requests for? Or if they're not specifically requesting that technology, what are you, what solutions are you providing through a technology? What's really sort of the most popular technology right now?
Yeah, that was the next question. What Joe says is, what are you, all 3 of you, evaluating, implementing, and using? And I know in our prep session, all 3 of you had just a basic advanced use of Microsoft Teams or Zoom. And can you weave that in? I thought that was a kind of a fascinating discussion as to how you've evolved using that collaborative tool beyond what I think a lot of people out in the audience are using. So it's kind of a 2-pronged question, but Heather, you look like you're ready to go. So I'm going to.
I feel bad. I hope I'm not stealing the thunder from my 2 co-panelists here. But yeah, what we talked about is that Microsoft Teams is so much more than a communication tool. It's really a collaboration tool. I think one of my co-panelists was their phrasing there. And it's really a matter of being able to work on documents real time, live together, particularly while we're all working remotely. It's funny, I've worked with a global team now for close to 5 years. And so I've used Microsoft Teams and OneDrive for that purpose, but so I already had that appreciation for it. But it really, during the pandemic, when everybody started to work remotely, that's when it became very, very valuable. You can make phone calls on it. You can make video calls. People are very familiar with that. But being able to then link it in with your calendar, being able to link it in with the files that you can work on together, being able to link it into actual teams based on what teams you're working on and having specific chats just for that. And then I would also say being able to link it into the whiteboard and the action items. So you can have these shared action items, these to-do lists, and people can collaborate. You can link files to it. It's a great work process execution tool, not just a communication tool. But speaking about it more broadly, as far as some of the top couple of technologies that our clients are really looking for, one is cyber, and we use the term at Jacobs cyber to be much more broad than cybersecurity, which is how most people think of it. It tends to be more of an umbrella term that's more all-encompassing. But really, without cybersecurity and then the cyber backbone that supports all of it, you can't have any of these other technologies. So cyber, I would say, would be number 1 and linked very closely with data, because again, without the data, you don't have the need for, nor do you have the ability to have any of these other technologies.
Great, thanks. John, how about you?
I think we are all using Teams. I think it came up in our prep for this, where I think the challenge is how many different communication tools you have and keeping up with all the different resources that people communicate. You're getting Teams messages, you're getting emails, you're getting texts, you're getting all kinds of different things. So that's one of the challenges. But I think the tool that's had the most value and impact on our business is something that Sam brought up earlier. We've been using Power BI for a few years now, and it takes some work to get your data warehouse set up. But once you have that set up, it is an enormously valuable tool to help manage your financials for your business. And you can link your business development system into it, so you can start projecting where your revenue is going. You can start seeing where if your business development is needing to get some energy in it. There's a lot of variety, a lot of things that you can do, as Sam mentioned earlier, but we've been using that for a few years, and it's added an enormous amount of value for me to make sure that we're tracking where we need to be going as the COO.
Sam?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if you ask 10 people, the first thing all 10 of them would say is Teams, right? And I agree 100% with the concept of Teams is just become ubiquitous, right? It's the new outlook. Everybody's living in Teams, and some of the things that we looked at was, how do you make Teams a little bit more efficient? You can probably dedicate a body to helping people understand all of the collaborative tools and planning tools and everything that's built into that. But we also focus a little bit on making sure that people aren't wasting time in there. So we have developed some automations within Teams. One of the recent one we worked on was a help bot that's built into Teams, where we allow people to go and ask a plain English question, how do I submit my timesheet, or how do I plot my plan, or and it'll direct them to knowledge bases and provide answers on the fly. So there's opportunities there, I think, that we're still digging into. But for us, the big ones are really around, again, the data and how to visualize, present, and share the data with clients. So we're focusing a lot of effort into things like Esri's Survey 123 and Field Maps, Earthsoft's Collects products. So those are we call them codeless platforms, so that even people who don't have programming experience can put together these applications for data collection in the field and simplify and automate some of the work in the back end. We're also spending a lot of time looking at LiDAR drones and backpack scanners. So the concept of being able to have an engineer walk through a building and take a 3D scan just as they walk, we can now produce what used to take us 3 or 4 weeks to create a model, we can do now in 3 or 4 days. And there's just a whole lot more opportunity on the back end of that. And then even looking at some of the bigger design side things. So we're spending time looking at things like Bentley Site Ops, where we can optimize sites for grading and planning very quickly in comparison to what we did by hand before. Autodesk's ForgePort platform's another example of places where we can go and create automation and design. And so being able to take that to the teams so that we can get more efficiency out of the staff, I think has been a big interest for us within the firm.
Let me ask you this. You guys have some great answers. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the audience does. What about onboarding? Where there's there's a dearth of talent out there. Everybody on this panel is trying to keep the folks they have, but you're trying to recruit new folks for growth. How do you onboard folks, new people, which in all three of your situations could be 15 to 20% of new employees in a given year? How do you get them acclimated to how we use Teams, what tools we have, how do we use new innovative ideas and technology, how to go through these competitions, the whole gamut of things. It's a lot to cover. And I know 10 years ago, I don't think firms had onboarding technology much in their thoughts. Where are you now on that topic? And it sounds to me like it's increasingly important. Sam, you want to go first?
I will say for us, it's actually easier now than it used to be. Time was when onboarding was not only a matter of making people aware of what's out there and showing them how to get to it, but also getting them comfortable with the technology. But so much of the workforce today is already comfortable with technology. So a lot of what we focus on is the awareness piece. And there is a lot to be said about making sure you stay out there in front of your staff and just constantly preaching what is available to them, how it helps them along the way, how they can get access to it and utilize it. So much so that actually we just started our first, I don't think we're officially calling them a technology evangelist, but that's actually the role. It's a full-time person dedicated to just bringing that level of awareness out to the staff. So, for us, there is an onboarding orientation that comes about. So the technology piece is probably an hour, and it really covers very high level. Here's where you go for this, here's where you go for that. And then from there on, a lot of it is announcements from IT. It's our road shows. It's our, our interactive things that we do with the staff. But a significant piece of it also actually is the team itself. Once you get embedded into a design team, we do rely quite a bit on the job training, we'll call it, because the teams themselves take our technologies and put them to use a little bit differently. So, we don't want to stifle that. We allow them to be a little bit creative with how they utilize things, and having that team kind of bring you into the fold certainly has a value as well.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to add on to that, or we could move on to the next question?
I'll jump in. I think that, I think most firms could probably benefit, and Jacobs included, could benefit from a better, more holistic approach to onboarding employees, period, much less on the tool side. But I will say that, to Sam's point, there's some things that you just have to get on the job. And whether that's on the job with somebody sitting down, there's a member of my team who will sit down with new employees and make sure that they understand where the teams are and which files they're supposed to use. And because it's not enough just to have a familiarity with Teams, it's very much bespoke to how your team uses Teams. So it's almost like, to some extent, the more technologically focused you become, the more personalized attention you need to provide somebody who's new to make sure that they can use the technology appropriately.
Okay.
The only thing I'd add, Kevin, is I think COVID's forced us all to be more automated in what we do. And what we've done is, although this has been it's been a real pain to go through the onboarding process sometimes. And we've worked over, it seems like it gets reworked every year or two. But through COVID, we've really had to automate, and we've created micro training modules that we have our staff go through that get them at least the basics in some of these technologies that they're using, and then they need to build on that as part of their job. And so we're really focusing on those micro training modules for folks to sit and apply it as they're learning through that training.
Okay. Joe, anything else from the audience on this topic or others?
Just more of a clarification on the question asked previously. I think it was very helpful to hear the technologies that you all are using the most, but are those the technologies that the clients are asking for, or are clients not asking for specific technologies? I think the questioner was really interested in, are there specific technologies that the clients are asking for or not, and what are they if they do?
I'll chime in, Kevin. I think for us, I don't know that many clients are asking for a technology by name, but they're asking for technologies by need, right? So, I need to be able to see my data. I need to be able to search my sites. We're spending a lot of time invested in GIS systems. I think John mentioned this earlier. GIS systems are a great way to bring that spatial data and information together for a client to be able to slice and dice and cut and source and identify what's going on in their world. The visualization tools we talked about before, Power BI, clients just want to know what's going on with their sites. Equus's EarthSoft really brings that out in the environmental world. So the clients are asking for access to their data in a way that they can consume it and not drown in it, and then a way to identify what's going on in their world, visually as well as intuitively.
I think that's a really great way to say it, Sam, that they're not asking for the technology by name, they're asking for it by need. And I can give a couple of examples just from one particular Department of Defense client who is very interested. We started talking about some of the things that we do with technology and all the rest. And he was very excited about the opportunity to become more efficient when it comes to survey. So he has an installation that needs to be, he's been doing aerial surveys all this time. Could this be something that could be done, say, with a geopod and an automated process to be able to better analyze that? Another part that he was very interested in is intelligent asset management. Is there a way to decrease the manpower, human power that's required to go forward with intelligent asset management? Could he move to more of a predictive analytics model? And using technology, the answer is yes. And also digital twins. He was very, very interested in digital twin as it pertains to some of the more industrial applications. Is it possible to gain a better appreciation for what's going on in the physical world and be able to have the data from the physical world be fed into this digital twin that they can then use to run different what if scenarios, use it as sort of like a flight simulator, if you will, and to be able to automate and to be able to operationalize and make more efficient, really optimize is what I was trying to say, optimize the operations with this data that's constantly being fed back in real time.
Thanks.
So he never said, I need this technology, this technology, this technology.
Right.
To Sam's point, he said, I want it to be more efficient. I want it to be safer. I want it to be automated.
Problem solution. Here's we have time for one more question. And the question is, what is the single most valuable technology that you think your firm will be using in 5 to 10 years? Tough question. So what is it out there yet? Is it emerging? Is it just getting better at the tools that are out there? What is the single most valuable technology your firm will be using? Or is that just impossible to answer?
I'm not sure it's out there yet. I'm gonna 10 years out. I don't think the technologies, I think things are evolving so quickly when it comes to technology. There'll be those standard bearers that are going to be there that we'll be using, if it's Bentley or if it's Civil 3D or if it's GIS. But the evolution of these technologies is moving so quickly. I'm not sure it's out there yet.
Okay, good answer.
Yeah,
Heather? I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I agree with John. I don't know how you would in today's technology world, right? If you're projecting beyond 18 months, it's really a coin toss at that point, right? So 5 to 10 years is very tough to imagine. I think if you look at what's critical to us today and what's going to be critical to us tomorrow, there's 3 places that I would look at. One is, you know, the communications and collaboration field. So the constant evolution of things like Teams and how we're better utilizing them to make sure that people are staying engaged and staying collaborative. And then I would say also the tools that we use for data mining and visualization, at some point, those are going to become very baseline. And we're talking about some of them today as things that we're investigating or working on or becoming critical. But, you know, 18 months from now, I think that's mainstream. I think if you're not doing that, you're missing quite a big piece of it. But, you know, for us, the piece that's on a bit more of a horizon is the continued use of AI artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's slowly creeping into technology or into the engineering world, at least today. We're doing some of it, not nearly as much as we could be. You know, the consumer market is doing a ton of this stuff, and we're seeing lines blurred. So between what we do and the consumer market is quickly fading away. So I think you'll start to see some of that artificial intelligence and machine learning become really mainstream over the next 18 to 36 months.
Thanks. Heather, last words.
Yeah, so I did touch on this earlier, but that umbrella term that we use in Jacobs of cyber and then the data aspect of it, those are not technologies, but they're really enablers. And I think that they are also drivers and accelerants of what the new technology that John and Sam alluded to has not yet been invented. And they're really enablers for all kinds of things, not just the traditional engineering and design piece or the construction piece, but things like climate response.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Joe, any last words from the audience?
Just one final question, if you can. If you're using automation for some routine tasks, can you mention any additional examples like Sam mentioned before?
I don't remember which one I mentioned, but I'll give you a couple that we do deal with. So one of them is looking at field data collection, because again, we do a lot of that in our world. The ability for people to gather data in the field, and then in the back end, we take that data and we will format and present it. We create automated field daily reports in the back end. I think I just saw somebody mention the help bot. That's another piece of automation that we've done recently. So being able to get people answers without having to tie up another body. We are dabbling a bit more in Power Automate platform and Flow. A good example of that is having an environment where somebody can send an email with an attachment that is specific to a function or a project, and then having Flow in the background, parsing off that file, posting it to SharePoint, and then making people aware of the fact that there's a new file attached. Presentation of reports. So we've been doing quite a bit of that with our accounting team, rather than having people take a spreadsheet of data and format it a specific way and send it out via email to people to consume, to being able to take that data in the back end and format it into a dashboard, and then having self-serve, you know, the finance folks or the executives being able to pick up a dashboard and seeing their own data, not only seeing it, but also being able to format and slice it on the fly rather than having to wait on somebody to create a report for them. The automation world is just, you know, it's endless.
And I would add on the design side of things, I mean, we've got, you know, automation that we're using to automate certain repetitive sorts of design components, particularly say for railway or other very, you know, in this case, linear, but there are other applications as well.
Well, thanks so much. Daphne, let's turn it over to you, I guess, at this point.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great session. Thank you all so much for all of your insights, the examples you gave, recommendations, a lot of good, detailed, specific answers. I think our audience probably found very helpful. You've really given us a lot to think about. A special shout out to the ACEC Research Institute donors who have made this roundtable possible. We invite each of you to think about and consider how you and your firm might get engaged and support the Institute. We do have a short evaluation that we'll send you this afternoon, so please share your experience with us. It only helps us get better. And with that, I will say thank you again to our panelists, Kevin, Joe, thank you. And everyone have a great afternoon and stay safe.
Thank you to the panel. Thank you, folks. Great job.
My pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.